Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, once again. I am Doc Rotten, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. We are returning to Hannibal, the TV show from 2013 through 2015. Once again, we did the Hannibal fan podcast, starting with season 2 back in the day. And we've decided with hitting Netflix that we're going to cover the entire series once again, starting with season 1, which we did not cover in our Hannibal fan podcast. But we are back. And with me, I brought the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-host on the net, Dave Dreher. Welcome. You were here with me when we started this.
Yes,
me, you, and Thomas Mariani. Are you happy to be covering Hannibal once again?
I am. I'm happy to return to the prep area, if you will.
You rock, sir. You rock. That is amazing. Okay, of course. Also joining us is Christopher G. Moore, the Fannibal among Fannibals. You definitely are excited about this. How excited are you?
Holy shiitake mushroom.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
so excited.
Nice. Yeah, that's appropriate for episode 2. All right. Also joining us is Vanessa Thompson, the Scarlett Spitfire. Now, this is your first time watching the series. I know you've heard about us talk about it over and over. Of course, we've already recorded episode 1. But how has this experience been for you watching it?
So much fun. I'm in my Alana Bloom. It's from episode 1 that we covered.
Nice.
Yeah, because I love her. Obviously, she's adorable. But I'm having so much fun. The visuals are amazing. It really makes me want to up my food game. Like, my food should look better than what it does. It shouldn't all be one color on my plate. So
Yeah. Gotta get some multiple colors in there. Yeah.
Some meat. Add some meat.
Yes, have somebody for dinner. All right, let's talk about season 1, episode 2. Came out April 11th, 2013. Amuse-Bouche is the episode. Dave, you were saying there's a couple different pronunciations, but that's the best for me.
That's the most Americanized, yes.
Okay. And Christopher, you were saying that the title refers to a pre-appetizer?
Yeah. It's a pre-appetizer that warms you up to your appetizer. They usually give it to you when you get your drinks, which is weird that it's a pre-appetizer for the appetizer.
It's usually something very light, like a gelatin or a something of those, a flan, something like that. Something very light and very small.
Maybe a mushroom.
Potentially a mushroom.
A single mushroom.
A sugary mushroom.
There you go. Sugary. All right. The synopsis is: Will and Jack hunt a killer who is burying his victims alive so they will become fertilizer for a garden of fungus, while a tabloid journalist, Freddie, sets targets on Will. But in the most amazing way. This is directed by Michael Rymer. It's written by Jim Danger Gray. Great name. Developed, of course, by Bryan Fuller, based on Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. Let's go over the cast real quick. First, we have Hugh Dancy playing Will Graham. Mads Mikkelsen is Dr. Hannibal Lecter. And Laurence Fishburne is Jack Crawford. We talked about that in our first episode when we covered the first episode. So head back there if you didn't hear it to check out all the cool details. And then, of course, we have Hettienne Park as Beverly Katz, Caroline with an L that's not there, but it's there. Dhavernas. I never could pronounce her name for 3 years. Why would I be able to do it? Dhavernas is Dr. Alana Bloom, and Lara Jean Chorostecki is
Chorostecki.
Thank you. It's Freddie Lowndes. We get introduced to her in this episode, and it is a lot of fun. And in the supporting cast, we have Scott Thompson as Jimmy Price, CSI, and Aaron Abrams as CSI Brian Zeller, and Kacey Rohl as Abigail Hobbs. Makes an appearance and will become more important as the show goes on. So I'm going to start off this episode because this particular episode means a lot to me. I confessed last, in the episode we recorded about the first one that the first episode didn't win me over initially. Revisiting, however, was fantastic because I knew where it was going. but it kind of was lukewarm. Now I always give a new series 2 or 3 episodes to get into it, and wow, did the second episode have a lot of rewards, because it freaked me out. It literally freaked me out with these these people buried and growing mushrooms. It disturbed me visually. And it hooked me right away. Freddie Lowndes being in there, there's this tension is now developing, especially when she has a conversation with Hannibal, and you kind of get the idea. Okay, I know where this goes. Will they go there? Will they go there, or something else going to happen? But this show, there's a lot of different types of casting, and they also have different kinds. They also, how should I say it? They twist plots, they mix plots, and they also subvert expectation. But knowing stuff adds a lot of fun. And this episode is, even 3 seasons in, rather, it remained one of my favorites for the Mushroom People alone. Just the whole concept of it was disturbing and gruesome, and one of the more disturbing graphics I ever saw on network television. Now it gets more crimson. There's no blood really in that particular element of it, and but that didn't matter. It didn't matter. It got me, and it got me good. All right, let's get around to the rest of the crew. Vanessa, as the person who's watching this for the first time, what was your impression of the second episode? Did it how did it relate to the first one? Did it go miles above, or what?
So the first one really sets the tone, and I think everything's kind of built up from there. But wow, did it really take a leap into this one, because those mushroom people are insane. Like, so many props to the special effects department, the makeup department, because those looked amazing. I was shocked when I saw it, to which everything you see after that, things maybe in a similar vein that we see later on, you have such high expectations, and they meet them all because of this episode, and how it's such a unique, interesting idea. I've never seen anything like it before, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I forgot to mention in our first recording, but I just watched Manhunter last night for the first time to kind of get an idea, what these characters were based on, and just get a different point of view. That Freddie Lowndes is annoying as hell. This Freddie Lowndes, I want to kill still. Like in my dreams, I dream about killing her. I love that they turned a lot of the characters female too. I thought that was just a really great choice, and they've done it seamlessly so well. The female characters are so well fleshed out, so interesting and fresh to watch. All of them, all of them. I have Beverly she has my heart. No, don't make that face, Doc.
All right. You did not see anything. All right. Dave Dreher, sir. Well, revisiting this episode and knowing how I felt about Mushroom, what did you think of this one?
Yeah, I can still remember the first time you see this. You texted me as you were watching it. And you're like, "Oh my God, have you seen the Mushroom People yet?" I'm like, yeah, I mean, by far, this second episode is far better than the first one, as far as I'm concerned, and not just because of the Mushroom People. I mean, just thematically, and we really get an idea of where they're going to kind of head with this, at least in this first season now. And Will kind of comes of his own in this episode. At least he did for me. Like, all the different pieces of him kind of came together. We got a full picture of what he's battling mentally. It just, I don't know. It just kind of all kind of, when it became one seamless package for his character. for me with this episode. Plus, I love the scene where we realize one of the mushroom people are still very much alive. That was just creepy as shit.
For a short bit. Oh.
Yeah. And then when we're in with the CSI team and they're, he comes up with the revelation that they're all diabetic, and where that revelation leads us further down the story. None of the killings really have anything to do with Hannibal per se, but it's just kind of masterfully done. I really enjoyed this episode. I can't remember. I remember a couple of the upcoming episodes from the first watch when we were watching them, but I think, if memory serves me right, this is going to remain my favorite episode of season 1, I think.
Yeah, there's some really strong ones later in the season. Around episode 8, we get a new character. I won't reveal who that is just yet. And things really kick into high gear.
Isn't there an episode coming up with like a guy with a mechanical werewolf suit or something? Am I remembering that right? There's
horses. There's all kinds of things. There's birds, sparrows, everything you can imagine. There's something where somebody's wearing
this episode was a fun rewatch. I really enjoyed this episode.
Yes. Christopher G. Moore, tell us about episode 2. What is special about this that makes it stand out outside of just mushroom people?
Well, it definitely makes me not want to buy organic mushrooms anytime soon. I don't know where those are being made. But yeah, I think this one specifically really shows the ingenuity with some of the stuff they're creating in this new universe. I mean, this is such an intricate, original way for someone to sort of like torture people that's beyond my comprehension. Although I'm sure, I hate to say this, I'm sure Jeff Moore would be happy to know that that the horror reference that he was inspired was Motel Hell. So I'll say right now, this is the best Motel Hell remake.
Yes, there you go.
Of course, you could film a turd and it would be a better remake. But you're welcome, Jeff Moore, if you're listening. But no, I mean, it's such a, and I think that I think this is really just Bryan Fuller's a sick individual. Some of the stuff he picks up in this series, and I think this is the one that really, I think, knocked all of us on our ass. We're like, oh my god, I can't even think about something like that. That's I mean, it makes me very suspicious of my pharmacist. It's like, what's he doing with but yeah, it's and we get a little bit more of the manipulation of Hannibal's character, and we get a little bit more in depth with Will Graham and what he's about, and there's a lot of really interesting conversations they have to where you can sort of see that he's trying to give advice, but at the same time, he also is trying to sort of like open up Will Graham to sort of like be this kind of person he wants him to be. And there's a really, and the conversation at the very end is actually a letter that Hannibal wrote to Will Graham in Red Dragon. And that whole conversation they have at the end is lifted from that book. So yeah, it's and we get the Freddie Lowndes the first time we see her. Yeah. What movie is it? Which movie, Thomas Harris movie, is it referencing? Silence of the Lambs, when she's sitting nude at her computer, which is just like when Buffalo Bill is sitting nude when he's sewing his human suit. So there's a lot of interesting references to things. And by the way, Crystal Cleveland needs to cosplay Freddie Lowndes. Am I wrong?
Yes.
That
works.
We need to all do a Hannibal group if we ever are able to be in the same room together ever again. I kept thinking, it's like Crystal Cleveland could pull that off. She could pull off that attitude too.
She had those crazy eyes.
Yeah. She could pull off annoying.
So that would make me hate her less, though. So
that's true.
I hate her a lot.
Well,
and it feels good.
Well, and that's the whole point of it is like, because there's a lot of stuff that plays into in the books with just the Freddie Lowndes character in general. And so she's got to be that sort of reporter that is doing everything, lying, doing everything so she can get it on her little tattle crime, whatever her site is.
She needs to become a human suit. I hate her so much.
But yeah, I mean, I love the, her sort of stirring the pot really adds a lot to the series because now, she's also messing a little with Will Graham, who's still trying to come to terms with himself. And so, yeah, I think you still have some of those visuals type stuff that we had before. We get to see him sort of sing that haunting image of Hobbs. Yeah, I love the scene where the he's shooting and that thing's coming up and it's the Hobbs body and he's shooting Hobbs. He's coming. I mean, he's got those like that.
He's got those dead eyes too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so but yeah, and I think the only thing that kind of stood out that was kind of missing is like you get the hint that she sort of messed around with Aaron Abrams' character, which supposedly they cut a sex scene out. She had a sex scene with Aaron Abrams.
She's a bitch.
But you couldn't see his face. You couldn't see his face in the shot, so they cut it. So all you hear is him whisper that little thing. So but yeah. I mean, this is definitely a standout episode. It's not like it doesn't have a lot of crazy stuff, and it kind of ends in a weird place.
What?
Well, but yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't have like it's not like it's kind of like a slow moving type thing that moves along, and it kind of ends at a place to where it's like, oh, I want to see what happens next, So, but yeah, I think this is definitely a standout episode. I think this is the one we, every year that every season we did, or at least the 2 seasons we did, we were always talking about the mushrooms because you just can't. There's nothing as unique as this ever.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's some violins or cellos.
Well, there is other unique
definitely
stuff.
other things, but yeah, this is.
But that's just more of just.
But this one just sets the tone so well for that kind of stuff that when you see the other things, it's not that they're not shocking anymore, but it's more of an expectation that you have at this point.
Yeah, and this one's also a little more grounded, no pun intended. As opposed to doing some of the strange kills. You can imagine somebody doing this, right? Because he kept them alive, but then even after they were technically dead, so they could feed. And then there was all this relationship between the brain and the fungus, and it's like, oh no, and it's just the implications are as gruesome as what we're seeing. For me, what I think really I appreciated more seeing it the second time was the relationship as it's building between Will and Hannibal, because there's an admiration that's growing on both from both directions in not the same way. And there's a trust that's being built that is, going to be very crucial to keep the series going between the two, as Will starts to open up, and we get, because he admits that how he feels about, shooting. I keep forgetting the character's name.
Hobbs.
Shooting Hobbs, and. Why shooting Hobbs and because now he has a taste for killing, and how does it affect his ability to step into how others think about killing now that he has now he can cloud that judgment, right, because of his own taste. So it's really interesting what's going on. And there's also is this the episode where we have a dinner with Jack and Hannibal as well?
Yeah.
And that one is like, okay, what are you eating, Jack?
What he says loin.
Loin, yes.
Yeah.
Always.
But he does
loin
ask.
of what?
He says pork, but no.
And he adds that the red looking sauce on it. It looks like blood, and you're like, oh,
Blood.
man.
Yeah.
The food styling on this was amazing. Remember that guy? Remember that guy actually had that blog up for a while what was it? Cooking Hannibal or
It was a lady.
Yeah.
I think it's something.
It was something Hannibal, wasn't it? Cooking Hannibal or I can't remember what it was, but
Cooking
it was
with
fast.
Hannibal, yeah.
It was fascinating to
Homework.
read. Yeah, I wonder if it's still up. Feeding Hannibal? I can't remember what it was called.
Well, there was a book and everything.
She wrote a book, based
yeah.
on her. Yeah, because every episode, Janice Poon, she was the food stylist.
That's it.
And she every week that she'd show pictures of how she created foods, what she used to sort of recreate certain parts of the foods and stuff. And that's I guess that's the whole thing. It's like, because we always think about when we see cannibal movies, they always show like showing gross, like a foot or something, and it just looks gross. It doesn't look like, they were just eating it like it's a chicken, and they're not even cooked. But here it's like he cooks these things so delicately and so beautifully. It's just like a well shot Food Network show, and
I would eat it.
Oh,
if
yeah,
that was presented to me, even if I knew what it was.
Yeah,
I think I would eat it.
If I knew what it was, maybe not.
There's one episode later on that involves Jello. I was like, no, but everything else is
the bird
delicious. Well, the bird too. Yeah, there's a few of us like that's some weird stuff.
That's later in the
but
seasons.
I think that's the interesting part of it. There's so many different people that are strong in their different parts of helping create this, whether it's the cinematography, whether it's the direction, whether it's the production design or the look, like Hannibal. When they created Hannibal, did you know he never wears black? Because he wants color in his life. So all of his suits have color in it. He wants to, even though he snuffs out life, he turns it into something good. He's all about celebrating life, whether it be through fashion, whether it be through art, or whether it be, taking your leg and turning it into, a nice dinner. So he's all about celebrating life or celebrating your death.
All right. So you hate Freddie, Vanessa. Tell me of what you thought of the tension between her and Hannibal when he figures out what she's doing, and because you kind of know that she has perhaps set herself. She's put a big target on her back, right?
Well, yeah, and for a moment, I let myself believe that would be the end of her. For a moment, but with a character like Hannibal, she's too much fun, right? And someone he could easily control and manipulate to do whatever he wants, or make the dominoes fall however he pleases. It's funny that you say tension too, because there was a lot of that in there. There was a lot of kind of like fatherly kind of sexual tension, you've been a very naughty girl, Miss Lowndes type thing, and it just creates so many layers, and it gives you so many different emotions, and it triggers so many things in your mind all at the same time, that it's really just creating in the way that Hannibal creates these meals. I feel like these episodes, especially getting into 2 and going forward, create these kind of meals in your mind where so many different things are going off when you taste this piece of the story and you taste this piece of the story. And that, the more you think about it, you see how well crafted it all is and how beautifully it ties into the next. And the things you don't want to happen, you still stand by watching because it's just so perfectly interwoven. There are things that happen in this. I'm like, how are we not in a knot at this point with the story?
Right,
but it just ties such a perfect little bow, and I'm continuously impressed.
Well, to me, the one thing that I realized, Freddie Lowndes is the other side of the coin of Hannibal. If you think about it, they're both manipulators, but they manipulate in different ways.
She's the rude version.
She's the rude. Yeah, she's the rude version. He's the non-rude version. He does everything under the table. He does everything to not be seen, and that's the reason he can wear his human suit and do things and go about different things, because it's easier to manipulate people if they don't know you're manipulating them. Okay. But she manipulates people to get her way. She manipulates people to get her stuff, but then she puts it out there, and she puts stuff out there. She's very sensational in how she puts things, which gets her in trouble. you know. So, and I think that's the difference. They're both basically the same, different sides of the same coin, but she goes about it differently. And, you know, and I think that scene between her and Hannibal, I think when you first watch that, you're thinking, oh my God, is he going to kill her? You know, because he's just like, he's almost like very cat-like. He's very, very like, you know, when he sits down and he puts her purse on the other side of him, I'm like, he's going to break her neck or something, you know.
What's he gonna make?
Yeah, it's like, oh, what is it? You know, he and you know, I know how this all turns out, but even I was feeling like, oh God, this feels like this could turn on a dime. And I think that's the cool thing about Hannibal is like he can sit there and talk all nice and stuff, and he's already, you know, she spends her time trying to do lies and try to not be seen. You know, if she goes to people that don't know her, but he sees right through her from the very beginning, you know. And then he's just doing his way. He's almost like playing he plays with his food, I guess, to where he's like, you know, later on he talks her into like deleting the stuff. And I mean, it's just the way he talks, the way he uses language, the way he physically moves around, like he's very classy in how he goes about it. And it's only those type of moments where, you know, if he can't stand someone, and that's when he unleashes the beast and he goes outside of his human suit and becomes that sort of like crazy feral person that later became Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. So yeah, I love those kind of scenes to where you can see the gears moving in his head at the same time. You're not exactly sure what he's going to do. You know, it's like when you see a cat run into the room, it's like, what is this cat going to do? Are they going to go up and nuzzle beside me? Is it going to scratch my eyeballs out?
Scratch your eyeballs.
I don't like cats, by the way. So.
It sounds like that. Let's talk about Hannibal's office, because we really get a lot of that. I love that he doesn't necessarily do the you know, put the patient in the on the couch thing, even though we were just talking about the couch. Like the conversation between him and Will's on like the library loft, right? And later they're in chairs opposite each other, like opposing sides of a chess toward the end of the episode. So Dave, how much of that, the locations and the different sceneries, play into you becoming a fan of this show as the season goes on?
Well, I think great effort is put into every shot that we see. I mean, everything that we do, his office looks the way it does for a specific purpose, which we get more of as we get deeper into the episode. But his human suit, if you will, he, you know, and he is, you know, not only is it, but it's part of the facade he's pulling off as being this highly intellectual, you know, very, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word I want. Unlike Dr. Lecter, I am not highly intellectual. But you know, it's part of the facade he's living. It's part of that human suit. And you know, everything around him reflects that. And it goes into the same detail that they have with the food. There's just great detail. And in every place when he sits beside or across from, the distance he has from that person, or, you know, if he's looking at him from the left or the right, everything plays into his game. And usually when you realize that, it's too late.
It is too late.
You know, so, but that's part of the fun of this, because everything is so well calculated, and hidden so well that it's a shock there. Even on a second viewing, it's still shocking. You know, when it actually happens. Just like Christopher was saying with that thing with Freddie on the couch, I thought the same way. I know that he wasn't going to hurt her, but I'm like, he's gonna fucking kill her. he's gonna do it, you know. But that's part of the majesty of the show, that they can pull that off.
Yeah, there was a couple shocking moments I had totally forgotten about outside of the mushrooms. Like outside in the parking lot with the car and Freddie. I forgot all about that.
I forgot about that too.
Yeah,
I did too. Yeah, because I was like, what the hell just happened?
I know. I was like, did he help her later? No, I guess not. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Vanessa, you're up first. Were you already a fan by the time you watched the second one, or is this when you like I was the first time I watched it that sealed the deal?
Yeah, I'd say I was a fan-ish after the first one, and I was definitely a solid fan after the second one. Those mushroom people really just aesthetically got me. It really got me. And it's just such a, I've watched further on, so I've seen crazy things happen. But at that point, it's just such a terrible thing to do to someone, right? Such torture. And, they talk about, oh, they're asleep, they don't know. But what do we know what people actually know, when they're in a coma or basically buried alive. And that just, they just did such an excellent job of it. So I'm going to jump into my favorite scene.
Yes,
so I
please.
don't take up too much time because I really, really, really did love these mushroom people. And there's two parts that stood out to me when they were dealing with them. One, when they were moving them from their graves to stretchers, just the way the bodies moved, how languid they were. At one point they were moving them and the body moved like that. And I felt my stomach turn at that point because it just felt too real. Mm-hmm. It really looked too real and it felt tangibly too real at that point. And that just really got me. Second is when we get our guy that wakes up.
Oh, that moment. Oh my gosh.
That smile. Yes. What? That was horrifying.
Oh man, because when they pull the tape off, it rips their lips off. Oh mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh,
very what's it called? Return of the Living Dead, right?
Oh yeah.
Gave me those kind of vibes. I was solidly hooked after two.
Yeah, I think you kind of maybe touched on why this affected me so is because a lot of the kills later that I remember, the ones that stand out, are really almost surreal and very artistic. Where this one feels, it just feels like it could actually happen. And
mm-hmm.
All right, Dave, sir, favorite scene and final thoughts.
Final thoughts. If you're not a fan after episode 2, you're not going to be a fan. This is the one that should do it for you. It was just a really solid episode and a real good precursor of what's to come. Favorite scene. It also has to do with the mushroom people, but this is very early on in it. I had forgotten this scene. Actually, it's when the kids are walking through the kids who discover our mushroom people. Yeah, and they're like, "That's a marijuana plant." It's the arm sticking up with the IVs.
Oh, I love that, Dave. I love it because it's very almost like Stand By Me.
Yeah,
right?
And I'd completely forgotten about that, so I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. All right, Christopher, is this season? Did they do Eat the Rude? Was that part of this, or am I thinking something else?
He does call her rude.
Yeah.
I don't think he doesn't use the phrase "eat the rude."
I think I might be thinking of something else. Anyway, give us your WTF moment and final thoughts and any other wisdom that you can share with us.
Well, I mean, I guess the WTF's got to be the mushroom people. Although a close second would be when he's at the shooting range and Hobbs' his dead body comes up and he's shooting him and you can see the bullets go into him.
And Hobbs makes an appearance in the garden as well with all the mushroom people.
Yeah. He sees him in that grave.
I have to interject real quick while you're on that point. So my husband is former military, and he commented on that scene where Beverly comes in and switches how Will is shooting.
Yeah.
And the first thing he said, it was like, okay, now he's going to shoot it right every time. And the fact that he didn't, that he actually still shot off and was still kept realistic, that was something that would actually happen in that situation, really stood out to someone who has that kind of personal experience, which speaks so highly to the people that they have setting up these shots, right? Just amazing attention to detail.
Well, and with my job, I look at medical records and I deal with people that have diabetic ketoacidosis, and that's no joke. It'll cause you to create necrosis, So I can only imagine you have these bodies that are just basically rotting, and then mushrooms growing up from that. So there's just it's that whole thing is definitely WTF. But yeah, this episode definitely is a great. It's a very memorable episode. You won't forget what you've seen. Some people may hate that part.
Yes.
Nightmares to where the next time you're going out in the forest, you looking for hands sticking out. Although I do love the little kids like, that's not marijuana. Duh, it's like, like that would be a marijuana plant. But yeah, there's some really great moments. We talk about like storytelling when you're writing a script. You always want to like, have some piece of dialogue or something that's a callback later. And early on, when Bloom they're talking about him being, getting analysis. He talks about like he knows all the tricks, he knows all the questions and stuff, dealing with Bloom and stuff. And later on, Hannibal says, "What do you think about that?" And he does that on purpose because he knows that's going to irritate Will Graham. He's trying to get him in his grace. He's like, I'm no different than you, dude. He's trying to like manipulate him and things like that. I think are just brilliant. That's part of the brilliant storytelling with the dialogue, with the screenplay. Everything coming together, and that office is almost like Hannibal's mind palace too. But if you think about it, it's a whole library type thing. And I think actually one of the pictures is the wounded man, which is actually from the Red Dragon. But yeah, this episode's great. As for my favorite scene, it's a good question. I guess I'll just have to go with, even though the normal thing would say something with the mushrooms, but I really love when other than the weird conversation they have at the very end, which is kind of weird. We talks about like, God is God enjoying it? No, God is powerful when he kills people by making the roof fall on their while they're worshiping. Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, that's how the episode ends. Not many shows will end on that, right? But I think probably the main thing that really hit me, I love the scene where he's at the shooting range and Hobbs' body. Something about that, just like things like that. I love that. I love the visual thing that you come away from this series and you remember those specific moments that stick in your brain. You can't get them out of your brain afterwards.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much about this episode because this is the episode I talked about for 2 years when we were doing it. And I really had forgotten it was episode 2. Amazed to watch it again. Still kind of disturbed me, much like Vanessa, like it did you, watching it, especially like when you said they picked him up. Since you guys took like all the scenes with the mushroom people, it would be the conversations between Hannibal and Will, because it's laying such great groundwork between the two. And as Will begins to open up and Hannibal leads him on by opening up, but he's not really, and we don't know that yet, right? Because he's saying like, he does feel responsible for Abigail but he's really he's not, he's lying, he's totally just reeling Will in. And just to see all those things start coming into play, and how when they stage this, even where they're standing in relationship to each other is important to the storytelling. Whether they're eventually standing, face to face, or if Will's very distant, he's up up in the bookcase instead of down on the floor with him, or if he's sitting in a chair across him. They actually get closer and closer and closer as the show goes on, and it's so even the distance means something, right? So it's really amazing to watch this show. The craft is. I don't know if any other show has touched it. There's so much. I mean, I've had a lot of favorite shows since then, from Westworld to a whole bunch of others, but Hannibal still is up there as maybe the best thing ever. So, and I don't think we've gotten to the best episodes. They're still getting there. They're still, feeling around, right? There's still a couple of little weird things. There's plot holes and characters that, don't, they're laying some stuff that doesn't pan out later. They abandon some plot threads. Doesn't necessarily matter, but they also are going to build things that they aren't yet building on there. And I don't know if it was intentional or they stumbled upon it, they put it in place and jumped on it, especially with Abigail. But I have a feeling they knew exactly what they were doing.
It's too good to not. It's laid out so well.
Right.
Bryan Fuller had to have known.
Yeah,
Well, that and right when you're sure used to how they're doing things, they flip the script and do something different. They put them in different situations. So even though, like a lot of shows where it's just based almost like a sitcom where it's the same thing over and over, that they play around with stuff, and I think each season they have a little bit of fun with taking the characters in different directions, different places, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's familiar characters from the movies that are going to show up.
Oh yeah, one
of your favorites,
favorite characters later.
Yeah, and then all kinds. It's this is going to be an amazing ride. And for those who are joining us, thank you for joining us. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe below. Hit the like button, hit the little bell so you can get notified. Leave some comments. Let us know what you think of us revisiting Hannibal. This is going to be a lot of fun. 3 years of shows to revisit and talk about. It's going to be a great time. Vanessa, Christopher, Dave, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Pleasure, sir.
I'll never turn down being able to talk about Hannibal.
No.
Never.
All right. Well, with that, let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Good
night.
night.
Gruesome Magazine.